Welcome back, everybody, to another deep dive with us. And this time, we're going down a path that I'm sure you're very familiar with. We're going to be taking a look at Rotkäppchen.
All right.
Or, as you might know it, Little Red Riding Hood.
Little Red Riding Hood, yeah.
Now, I know you're probably thinking, this is a children's story.
Yeah.
Why are we spending time on this?
Why are we doing this?
But trust me, there is a reason this story has endured for centuries.
Right.
And we're going to uncover some details and themes that maybe you've missed.
I love that.
Even if you've heard the story 100 times.
There's so much there.
So let's get into it.
Okay.
What is it about these classic stories that are so captivating?
I think it's that they are so simple on the surface,
Right.
but they really reflect some really fundamental things about our own lives.
Okay.
And I think, today we're gonna see how this seemingly innocent facade draws us into a world where the line between safety and danger is very blurry.
Okay, so let's start at the very beginning.
All right.
We're introduced to Red Riding Hood.
Yes.
Adorable little girl.
Right.
The apple of her mother and grandmother's eye. Everything seems peaceful.
Yeah, it's idyllic.
Loving.
It really is. And it's this idyllic setting that makes the lurking darkness all the more startling. If you notice how the text emphasizes Red Riding Hood's naivete.
Right.
She knew no wolves and had no fear.
Oh, wow.
It's like the author is deliberately setting her up,
Whoa.
making her vulnerable.
So you're saying
From the start.
that the author is intentionally making her an easy target.
Well, think about it.
That's kind of dark.
This story wouldn't be nearly as effective
Right.
if Red Riding Hood was a tough, street-smart kid.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Her innocence is what makes the danger so palpable.
Okay.
And it's not just Red Riding Hood who's unsuspecting.
Right.
The forest itself is described as this charming place, full of beautiful flowers, singing birds.
It creates this sense of peace.
It does.
And tranquility.
It's almost like a lullaby.
It is like a lullaby.
Lulling both Red Riding Hood and Dee the reader into a false sense of security.
I see what you mean.
And then boom,
Boom.
the wolf enters the scene.
Wolf's here.
And this is where things get
Here we go.
really interesting.
All right.
Because this is no ordinary wolf.
Okay.
He's cunning. He's manipulative. And he's a master of disguise.
Okay.
He doesn't just jump out and try to scare her.
Right.
Instead, he uses flattery
Okay.
and feigned interest to gain her trust.
So he's already playing a game.
Remember what he says to her?
Right.
My dear, charming Red Riding Hood.
Oh, yeah.
He's preying on her vanity.
Oh.
Her desire to be seen as helpful.
Oh, yeah, you know what? I never really thought about it like that.
Grooming her.
It is, he's manipulating her into letting her guard down.
Precisely. And this, I think, is a brilliant reflection of how societal expectations played a role in shaping vulnerabilities, especially for women.
Oh, interesting.
During the time period when many of these folk tales originated, women were often expected to be polite, obedient, and trusting to question or challenge a man.
Right.
Especially one who appeared to be in a position of authority, was considered improper.
So basically, Red Riding Hood is a product of her time.
Exactly.
She's acting the way she's supposed to act.
She is.
And that's what makes her vulnerable.
Exactly.
Right?
And the wolf, being the cunning predator, he exploits this.
It makes you think twice about trusting strangers.
It's a chilling reminder.
That's for sure.
That appearances can be deceiving.
Right.
We might encounter similar wolves in sheep's clothing in our own lives.
Hold on, though. There's this whole thing with the poisonous herbs.
Yes.
Right?
The poisonous herbs.
He pretends to be a doctor.
Right.
Tells her to pick some for her grandmother.
This is where the story takes a fascinating turn.
Yeah.
Remember how the text describes the herbs?
Okay.
Wolf's bast.
Yeah.
Wolf's beeren. Wolf's smelch.
What?
They're all named after the wolf.
Wait, the herbs are named after the wolf.
It's like the author's dropping a clue.
No. I never noticed that.
Hinting at the wolf's true nature.
That's so clever.
But hiding it in plain sight.
Wow.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a subtle detail, but it adds this whole other layer of meaning.
Right.
You could almost say The wolf is poisoning her with false knowledge.
Wow.
Just like he'll later poison her grandmother with his lies and deception.
Right.
And this idea of poisonous herbs can be interpreted more broadly.
Okay.
It represents misinformation.
Oh, okay.
And the danger of blindly trusting unreliable sources.
It's like a warning to be careful about what we consume.
It is.
Both literally and figuratively.
Yes.
Especially in today's world where we're constantly bombarded with information.
We have to be discerning.
You have to be discerning,
Now, let's move on to the part where the wolf races ahead to Grandma's house.
To Grandma's house we go.
He gobbles her up. And then, this is where the story takes a dark turn.
Things get creepy. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, this is where things get a little creepy.
The wolf, disguised as Grandma, lures Red Riding Hood into the house. Right into the house and,
that's a scene that's both terrifying and undeniably captivating.
Yeah.
The wolf, having already devoured the grandmother, now devours Red Riding Hood whole.
Yeah. As a kid,
it's a powerful image.
That part always freaked me out.
That speaks to our primal fears.
The image of her just being swallowed whole.
To the vulnerability of innocence.
Yikes.
In the face of cunning evil.
But there's also that part.
Right.
That's strangely funny. Remember how it describes the wolf snoring like a mill wheel?
Yes, I love that detail.
It's such a strange contrast to the darkness of the sea.
That's what makes the story so brilliant.
Yeah.
It blends humor and horror in a way that's both unsettling and memorable.
Yeah.
But despite the grim events, there's a glimmer of hope on the horizon. Our classic hero archetype,
the hunter here,
is about to enter the scene.
Okay.
The hunter's arrival really shifts the dynamic.
Yeah.
He represents justice and the triumph of good over evil. But notice how he doesn't just rush in.
Right.
He takes a moment to observe, to assess the situation.
Yeah. There's that part where he hears the wolf snoring.
Exactly.
And thinks maybe Grandma just ate too much.
Right.
Yeah. It's kind of funny.
It highlights the importance
it also shows he's thinking
of observation and careful consideration.
Yeah.
He doesn't just assume the worst.
Right.
He gathers information before taking action. And ultimately, it's this careful approach that allows him to save Red Riding Hood.
Okay, but her grandmother.
Cutting open the wolf's belly.
I admit.
That seems a little extreme.
It's a rather graphic solution.
Even for a fairy tale.
But remember, this story originated in a time when life was often brutal.
Right.
And survival depended on decisive action. Well, I guess in those times.
The hunter's actions, while violent.
That makes sense.
Were considered necessary to eliminate the threat.
Right. I still wonder, though, why fill his belly with stones?
That's a great question.
Couldn't he have just killed him?
And I think the answer lies...
And been done with it?
In the symbolism of the act. The stones represent the weight of the wolf's sins.
Okay.
His deception and violence.
Right.
By filling his belly with stones.
Yeah.
They're not just killing him. They're ensuring he can't harm anyone ever again.
Oh, wow.
It's a form of poetic justice.
I never thought of it that way.
Right.
The stones being a symbol of his guilt.
Yes. That's deep.
And then, of course, there's that amazing image of the wolf stumbling to the well, weighed down by those stones.
Like falling in.
And falling in.
It's such a vivid scene.
It's a powerful image of comeuppance.
It is.
The wolf, who thought he had outsmarted everyone, is ultimately defeated by his own greed and cruelty.
He literally drowns in the weight of his own actions.
So the bad guy gets what he deserves.
Right.
And Red Riding Hood and her grandmother are free.
Right.
But I'm sensing there's more to this ending.
You're absolutely right.
Than just a simple happily ever after.
The story doesn't shy away from the trauma of the experience.
Right.
Remember Red Riding Hood's chilling words after she's rescued?
The dark little room always stuck with me.
She talks about the dark little room.
It's so here.
Inside the wolf's belly.
It's so unsettling.
It suggests that even though they escaped physical harm, the experience has irrevocably changed them.
Yeah.
They've been forced to confront the darkness that exists in the world.
Yeah.
And they carry the scars of that encounter.
It's like a reminder that even when we escape danger,
precisely,
we're never quite the same.
And this is where
the experience leaves its mark.
Yeah. the story's deeper meaning starts to unfold.
Okay.
It's not just a cautionary tale about talking to strangers.
Right.
It's also a story about resilience.
Okay.
About facing our fears and emerging stronger on the other side.
So you're saying there's a message of hope embedded in this dark tale.
Absolutely.
Interesting.
Think about it.
Okay.
Both Red Riding Hood and her grandmother are literally pulls from the belly of the beast.
Right.
They're given a second chance at life.
Wow.
This rebirth, as it's often interpreted, symbolizes a profound transformation.
Okay.
They've looked into the abyss and emerged stronger.
I'm starting to see what you mean about this story having layers.
Exactly.
It's not just a simple fairy tale.
And I think that's one of the reasons why this story has resonated with people for centuries. It speaks to our deepest fears, our anxieties about vulnerability and deception.
Yeah.
But it also offers a message of hope, reminding us that even in the darkest of times, we have the capacity for resilience and growth.
That's a pretty powerful message to extract from a children's story.
There's even more to unpack.
Really?
This idea of rebirth also connects to another fascinating element, the recurring motif of the color red.
Oh, tell me more about that.
Well, red is often associated with passion, danger, and even blood in many interpretations of the story.
Yeah.
Red Riding Hood's Red Hood symbolizes her transition from childhood innocence to a more mature awareness of the world's dangers.
That makes sense. It's like she's shedding her innocence.
Exactly.
Or at least becoming aware that the world...
And this theme of transitioning from innocence to experience is something that resonates with people of all ages.
Right.
It's a universal human experience.
This is blowing my mind.
Me too.
I never thought I'd be having such a deep conversation about Little Red Riding Hood.
To see how much depth and symbolism is packed
But I'm loving it.
into this seemingly simple tale.
Yeah.
And speaking of symbolism, there's another interesting detail I wanted to touch on.
Right.
The wolf's name.
Okay.
Or rather, the lack of one.
Oh, you mean he's never given a proper name?
That's right. He's simply referred to as the wolf.
Right.
Which I believe is a deliberate choice by the author.
Okay.
By not giving him a name, the story elevates him to something more than just an individual character.
Right.
He becomes a representation of a universal archetype.
Okay.
The predator, the deceiver, the embodiment of danger itself.
So he's not just a wolf.
Exactly.
He's the wolf.
And this elevates the story to a whole other level. It's no longer just about a little girl and a bad wolf.
Right.
It becomes a cautionary tale.
Right.
About the dangers that lurk in the shadows, the forces that threaten innocence and goodness.
Wow. This whole deep dive,
I completely agree,
has really opened my eyes.
And that brings us to the ultimate question.
To the complexity and symbolism of Little Red Riding Hood.
What can we take away from this exploration of Little Red Riding Hood?
It's amazing how much we can learn from a story that's so often dismissed as just a children's tale.
What does it all mean?
Yeah, what does it all mean?
What are the key takeaways you hope listeners will remember?
Well, I think for me, one of the biggest takeaways is, even these stories that we think we know so well, like Little Red Riding Hood, can still have these hidden depths.
I wholeheartedly agree.
Right.
Little Red Riding Hood reminds us that we should never stop questioning, never stop digging deeper.
Right.
There's always more to uncover, more to learn.
And it's not even just about fairy tales, right?
Absolutely.
It applies to
everything in life.
Yeah, everything in life.
Whether we're reading a news article, listening to a podcast, or even just having a conversation with a friend, we should always be looking for the subtext, the hidden meanings, things that aren't being said outright.
It's like we need to develop our own hunter vision.
That's a brilliant way to put it.
Right.
We need to cultivate that sense of discernment, that ability to see through deception and recognize danger, even when it's cleverly concealed.
So it's not just about being cautious.
Exactly.
It's about being aware.
It's about being aware, being informed, and being willing to think critically about the world around us.
Right.
And ultimately, that's the most valuable lesson we can glean from Little Red Riding Hood. It's not just a story.
Right.
It's a reminder to be engaged, to be curious, and to never underestimate the power of a story, to teach us valuable lessons about ourselves and the world we inhabit.
Well said. I think that's a perfect...
The pleasure was all mine.
Note to end on. Thanks for taking us on this deep dive.
Of course.
Into Little Red Riding Hood. I know I'll never look at this story the same way again.
I hope so.
And to our listeners, remember to stay curious, stay informed.
Stay safe out there.
And as always, thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive.